Now we wait 3 months until Pitt football is back on the field for fall camp in late July and through August for the 2025 season, as the Blue Gold spring game on Saturday brought spring practice to a close for the Pitt football program. And there are some questions that were answered. Some, however, remain open as we head into these long summer months ahead of us. But welcome into the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. I'm Nathan Bryce here, and we're talking the biggest takeaways from the spring game. How did Eli Holstein do? Who were some of the bigger risers in camp and who showcased that during the spring game? And one certain position that I'm very concerned for the upcoming season. So let's get into it. It was a 17-14 win for the blue team over Team Gold. Got to see a handful of playmakers come in, step in, make plays, and was led by some of the guys who won the Most Improved Player, the Ed Conaway Award winners from earlier in the day. Shadarian Harrison at corner had 2 picks. Kenny Johnson had a couple of catches, dropped a couple of passes as well, but not too much concern there. Obviously, Thud Temple slowed things down, maybe messed with some of the rhythm of the offense. However, first takeaway, I think, is a big one, and that comes from the quarterback position, of course, talking about Eli Holstein, QB number 1, and the struggles he had on Saturday at Acrisure Stadium. He finished 17 of 33, 51.5% completion rating with 2 interceptions, both of those, as I mentioned, to Shadarian Harrison, who came up with both takeaways in the game. Did come in with a late touchdown to bring the game a little bit closer to Cameron Sapp, a freshman receiver. But all in all, not the best day for Eli Holstein. Now, a little bit disclaimer, obviously he came off of an offseason surgery on his ankle, so there's been a lot of talk. Pat Narduzzi has talked about it, that he's still recovering from that, still not maybe 100% healthy, but that was a big thing we were watching in the spring game on Saturday, was how was his mobility, just how was he able to handle the pocket, move around, look downfield, and at times it wasn't good. And should that, sound the alarm? No. But there's some concern to it. Again, he's not maybe 100% healthy, but he wasn't throwing the ball all that great. A lot of passes underthrown, thrown behind. The first interception was a little sidearm throw on the second pass of the game, and Harrison jumped it. Now, great play by Shadarian Harrison to get in front of that, but then his second interception, ball downfield, underthrown by Holstein. Just didn't step into it enough, and believe it was Cam Sapp on the back end of that play who was the intended target. And if Holstein put enough on it, he was leading him into the end zone for a touchdown because Sapp was behind Shadarian Harrison. But all in all, Holstein just did not look all that great. There was one specific snap that he took that really puzzled me. He snapped it, probably his best protection all game. Stood there for at least 3-4 seconds. Couldn't find anybody downfield. Not sure. I didn't get a look downfield on whether or not people weren't open or not, but still had a lot of time to look around, try to make a play, and instead he turns, he looks to dump it off to his running back, Justin Cook, and he spikes it right into the turf. Now, again, didn't see if someone was coming in defensively to try to make a play on Cook, and Holstein just decided to basically throw that one away. But that one was just like, wow, okay. Holstein's really struggling here. To maybe locate guys, find guys open, and it was apparent pretty much for the entirety of the day. And there was, he didn't at first. He didn't even spread the ball around a ton. He had a ton of guys to throw to. Kenny Johnson was out there as number 1 receiver option. Didn't throw to him a ton early. The guy that actually became one of his favorite targets in the entire game was tight end Malachi Thomas. And Malachi Thomas didn't have that great of a game either. Had a handful of targets that he dropped that Holstein threw behind him and just never connected with. Kenny Johnson finished with 7 receptions, 63 yards. But it was Justin Cook who finished with the most receptions at 12 receptions for 68 yards. And that was just, I think, a matter of Holstein needing to dump it down, look for his check down, and that was his only option. So Holstein didn't throw the ball all that well. But you have summer for him to get through this injury, continue to recover, work on it. Like I said, don't sound the alarms on him. He's still your QB1. But there's some good pressure behind him. Julian Duggar had a good spring. Didn't have that great of a day on Saturday. But then it brings us to our next point in the quarterback room. Mason Heinschel had a very nice performance in the spring game for Pitt football. The true freshman, he looked really good. Finished 8 of 11, 114 yards, threw a touchdown. Now that was primarily Katarius Hicks doing the work. Blue Hicks doing the work after the reception, getting that big yards after catch for 65-yard touchdown. But it was Holstein. They knew what they wanted to do on that play, quickly got it out into the hands of his playmakers, which is huge in this offense. That's what Cade Bell wants. He wants the quarterback to be able to find his receivers open or just get the ball into their hands because they should be making plays. And Blue Hicks did so. He just sped off down the middle of the field. No defenders able to touch him. Huge touchdown, electrifying touchdown to say for Blue Hicks. But Heinschel getting the ball out, he did so quickly a lot of times. But it were good passes, getting out to his receivers. And then there was a couple of times where his pocket presence looked really good. Stood in the pocket, felt some pressure coming, picked up a couple blitzes really good, spun out of there, and got away to make a couple of throws. He did take one sack, but there was just a lot of good things that came out of the performance from Mason Heinschel and a lot of good things moving forward to work on with him. And the talk's been a lot about him, along with Duggar in that quarterback room this spring, about how good they look, how important their development is. And Heinschel looks really good after 5 weeks of spring camp. Moving along to the next takeaway and part of that quarterback room, kind of mentioned it, but this receiver room truly does have the depth that we've sort of been talking about, the coaches have been talking about throughout spring. You saw Hicks make a play. Zion Fowler caught a touchdown pass from, of all people, All-American Kyle Lewis, stepping into the backfield on offense for a little bit, a couple of plays. But Fowler out catches a touchdown because he got open. Lewis probably wasn't going to throw it, but then he saw Fowler out get open downfield in the end zone past Cruz Brookins, and Lewis got on the ball. The left-handed throw just manages to get it into him, and Fowler out comes down with the ball. 6 scholarship guys caught passes in this game. Tony Kinsler caught a pass. Cameron Sapp caught a couple. He caught a touchdown. Katarius Hicks, Kenny Johnson, Zion Fowler. The list kind of goes on. Now, of course, the one guy that was on the rosters but didn't come up with a catch was Andy Jean on the gold team, and now he's in the portal. There's word that there could be more players heading into the portal, potentially from the receiver room, but we'll see what happens. Could happen, could not happen. But right now, where Pitt's receiver depth stands, looks pretty good. And I think we saw that, and the type of speed and athleticism that they have. I think Tony Kinsler talked about him a bunch. He's just a very talented guy as a freshman. Cam Sapp looked good. They have Bryce Yates made a couple of catches. He looked pretty good as well. Narduzzi talked about how he didn't have a ton of plays in the first couple of scrimmages, but got his hands on the balls a couple of times in this spring game. Now, Raphael Poppy Williams didn't play. Deuce Spann didn't play, who has emerged as maybe a secondary target on the outside for Pitt with a lot of length to him. Sincere Lee didn't play. So there's still a lot of other guys that weren't even out there that continue to make up this receiver room. And Pitt, they're in a good spot with the receiver corps right now, heading out of spring and through the summer months. Now, another guy, offensively, skill player, playmaker that could see the field come fall, freshman, running back, Jacurian Turner. I was impressed with him. Narduzzi said, hey, this is going to be a guy you'll be impressed with to the fans, and he did. And he didn't get in the end zone, didn't score a touchdown. He carried the ball 17 times for 44 yards. Now, if this wasn't thud tempo, he was going to be running through a lot of tackles. He'd probably have a lot more yardage on the ground than he did. He caught 3 passes for 15 yards, but there was, again, one play that really stood out to me. It was a play, he got the handoff, goes right behind sort of that right guard, right tackle on the line, and then he quickly cuts back towards the middle. Not a big change of direction, but just enough that he lost his defender and got a couple more yards out of it. Looked very reminiscent to what Desmond Reed did a handful of times last season. And that's just the type of player that Pitt has in Ja'Kirian Turner. He's explosive. He can make plays. He can make people miss. I mean, he's a lean guy at 5'9", 170 plus pounds, maybe upwards to 180 now. He has a very promising upside to him. Really impressed with what he did and just some of the small plays, small details that he did and made in the spring game. And of course, getting back around to another guy, the biggest riser on defense, Shadarian Harrison, 2 interceptions on the day, 6'1". He's lengthy, he's rangy. That's perfect for this Pitt defense and the type of coverage they want to play, that press and be up in your face on the receivers. And he made a couple of plays. Now, Holstein, we talked about through that second interception, but Harrison made the play. That was big in Narduzzi's eyes. He said he still came up with the interception. That's all that really matters. And that's what they need out of the corners to play lockdown coverage and then come up with plays when needed, splash plays. And Harrison did it all spring. He's a guy that has suffered from a shoulder injury for a majority of his young career here at Pitt. And now he's finally showcasing what he has to offer for this Pitt defense. Now, some other quick hitters before I get into the final takeaway. That's more on the concerning end, and we'll talk about that in a second. But quick hits from the defensive side of the ball. A couple of guys that stood out that made a couple of plays. Redshirt freshman Cam Lindsey, the linebacker. He's going to be at the star linebacker position. He's going to be battling with Jaden Bonsu, the Ohio State transfer, for that secondary backup role behind Kyle Lewis. He finished with 5 tackles, had a tackle for loss, had a pass defended in the end zone early in the game. So he flashed a little bit there, and Kyle Lewis said, man, behind Shadarian Harrison, I'd point at Lindsey to be the most improved player on this defensive side of the ball in camp. Jasir Whittington, these are all blue team players as well, and this D-line going against the ones on the gold team. So Jasir Whittington had 2 tackles for loss. Jaden Moore and Francis Brew had 2 tackles for loss. That's important to see, especially, Whittington, a younger guy, as a redshirt freshman. Brew, we kind of know what he brings and the strength that he has, but it's nice to see Whittington get in there a couple of times, and also Jaden Moore off the edge. And there probably could have been a couple of more plays he could have made if it wasn't that thud tempo, and maybe they should have whistled a couple of plays dead with the quarterback scrambling. But those guys made a couple of plays on the D-line for the blue team. And then gold, Kyle Lewis looks like Kyle Lewis. Was out there, 6 tackles, tackle for loss. He was just all over the place. Played offense, scored on offense with a passing touchdown, and then out there all over the place. And he was supposed to play limited snaps, but didn't really. He played up for a majority of the game and looked good, of course, leading that gold defense out there. And then Braylon Lovelace had 7 tackles, also a sack. Him and Jeremiah Marshland, that is an open battle at the Mike linebacker position, at the middle linebacker position. Ryan Manilak said it's a really good thing to have, and that'll be a thing to watch moving forward and heading into fall camp. And I'll write about that a little bit more over on PittsburghSportsNow.com. But the final takeaway for me was the kicking position, the kickers. What is going to happen here in 2025 with Pitt's kicking battle? James London was brought in from Murray State, all-conference kicker out there. And he took his lumps on Saturday. Missed from 33, missed from 42. If he hits those, that game's probably a lot closer, a lot earlier in that game, and could be a different trajectory of the outcome. But that is huge for the overall shape up of this kicking room right now. Sam Carpenter hit on his lone field goal attempt, hit on obviously his extra points. So did London on his extra points, but James London, this could be a big issue, I think, this year for the Pitt kicking room, and we'll talk about this more over the coming weeks and months. There's probably going to be inconsistency in this kicking room. Pitt fans are just going to have to handle that. Ben Sauls was a godsend. He was really good, so good from beyond 50, giving you a chance pretty much anytime you're on the plus side of the field to kick a field goal. He's going to go pro. He's going to get signed, or who knows, could get drafted, but he'll go pro. And now you have to replace him. Now you have to replace someone that was so good, at least the last 2 years for you. 3 years, had a really good Sun Bowl. Obviously helped walk off that game. But it's hard to replace a guy like that. Now James London probably is feeling that pressure. Narduzzi said he's been up and down this spring, and we saw the down side of things at the spring game. And I think, there's some red flags you can raise from that. So that is very interesting to follow. We're going to follow that obviously going into fall camp. How is that kicking battle going to develop? James London was sort of the projected guy maybe to take over. Sam Carpenter, though, has been talked about. He's developed nicely, has had a pretty respectable camp, and we'll see how he does moving forward. He's a redshirt sophomore. London, a little bit more experienced, just in terms of the amount of reps and snaps in game he has taken. So that is something we will monitor. Obviously, we'll talk about it and we'll look more into it going into fall camp. So that's probably the biggest negative takeaway from things was the kicking performance, especially from James London. So those are our takeaways from the Pitt Blue Gold spring game. That's a wrap for spring ball. Now we wait until late July and August for fall camp. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Pittsburgh Sports Now Football Pulse. Be sure to check out all of our content over there on PittsburghSportsNow.com.